I was born in Port of Spain. I was living at the time in George Street. I think it's 69 George Street. We
Okay.
moved from George Street to Henry Street.
Okay.
And from Henry Street, we moved to a street in Belmont. My father bought a house in Belmont. The name of the street was Rigol Street.
Okay.
It was the popular marking of that street was the Girl Guide Hut on the
Right.
Belmont Circular Road. We own, when I say we, my father owned that place. He bought it, owned it, and was converted into a proper dwelling house. Not that it wasn't proper, but a very modern dwelling house
Right.
in the 40s. And from there, I remember going to private school. Not too far from where I lived. It was also on Rigol Street,
Right.
and owned by a lady called Miss Daniel.
Okay.
And this private school was Miss Daniel Private School. And I remember trotting to school, which is not too far
Right.
away, just down the road. One thing about Belmont was that we created a lot of friends, and they
Right.
actually turned out to be families.
Okay.
People
Good.
like the Brunos lived in Clifford Street.
Right.
You had the Trotmans. As I said, Harold used to drop me to school.
Right.
We had Trotman. He was, I remember clearly on a Wednesday, I think it was. That's when we were coming from school on a Wednesday. We stopped by on our way back home. We stopped by a family. That's Trotman's family. And
Right.
we'll get sweet bread and and jam, and we
Okay.
look forward to that. So we created a sort of kind of families when we were
Yeah.
in Belmont. We had Tanti Rosa, who used to live a little high up the street. Tanti Rosa was Harold's mother.
Right.
Tanti this and Tanti that and Tanti this, the other, Mr. Bruno and Tanti Clarice,
Right.
his wife. The children were very close to us. And the family like Doreen and her and Phyllis Bruno, and they are big family, or big families of 8 and 9. And it was 9 of us.
Okay.
The family was 9. I am the second in the 9. 6 boys and 3 girls. Elder siblings was a girl.
Right.
And
Okay.
her name was Leonora.
Okay.
She was 2 years older than I am.
I remember Auntie Nora. Yeah.
Hey, you remember Auntie Nora?
I do.
Auntie
Yeah, I
Nora was
remember.
Auntie Nora was born in 1926. She was the first child. I born in 1928.
Right.
It's a long time ago.
And how old were you? Do you remember how old you were when you went to that school, when you attended Miss Daniel's private school?
I was just about in those before 5 years.
Oh, you're a
Because
little boy.
you go to
Yeah.
because private school, you went to private school up to about 5 years, and then
Okay.
to primary school. So I must have been younger than 5 years, a little younger than 5 years, going to that school. Belmont Boys RC. This one on Belmont Circular Road.
Right.
Headmaster was Mr. Caesar, Felix A. Caesar.
Right.
He was a friend of my father, so I had to behave myself. I remember clearly
Mm-hmm.
when I went there to school because I was a little older and more mature. To walk to school. Um, the neighbor who was a friend of my mother and father
Mm-hmm.
will drop me to school and bring me back. In those days, a fella called Harold Trotman.
Okay.
His mother was a friend of my mother. My mother never worked.
Right.
She was a housewife and never worked in her life.
Okay.
Very devoted in those days. You had very devoted housewives, and they hardly ever worked. Those who worked were more working in the kitchen of somebody. My father, he was a very, I would say, ambitious chap.
Really? In what way?
Yeah. In what way he provided well for his family,
Mm-hmm.
and he always thought the the welfare of his children through educating them. He was not a rich fellow.
Mm-hmm.
But, as you see, he started off renting George Street where we lived, renting Henry Street where we lived, renting those places before he acquired his own house. And he acquired and bought house in Rigol Street. In that way, I'll say that he was very ambitious and very, what was the word, boy?
Quite industrious, ambitious, hardworking,
Yes,
determined to
yes,
improve
yes.
his children in his life indeed. What
Good, as
what did
you
he do
say.
for work though?
Hmm?
What did he
Yeah,
do for work?
he worked simply with his hands,
Okay.
and he was employed in the early days at hardware and electric. He
Okay.
was their main mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
he used to travel to electrician, mechanic, electrician, and he was their chief mechanic. And in those days, you had no electricity.
Right.
No electricity throughout Trinidad. They had to
Okay.
depend on Delco, and he was the main man to go to the Tobago, especially where electricity was now coming into being, and he was the chief bottle washer as far as the mechanical works were concerned. He rode a bicycle. He never owned a car, but he
Okay.
knew everything about motor cars and
Mm-hmm.
uh, things like that.
What was his
Yeah,
name, Grandpa?
his name was Arthur Andrew.
Mm-hmm. Arthur Andrew. That Andrew has passed down.
Yes, Arthur too,
Mhm.
eh? Arthur.
Arthur Andrew
Somebody,
Lewis.
yes, Arthur Andrew.
And one of your brothers was called Arthur, right?
Yes,
Okay.
My that he was my he was he was born after me.
Right. Now, there's some connection between your side of the family and Panama. One of
What
your
is it?
family members, I think, works in the Panama Canal, right?
Yes, that's my grandfather
Your
and my
grandfather, yeah,
grandmother. I don't know whether my
right,
grandmother worked on the canal itself, but my
right,
grandfather worked on the canal.
right.
They were together in those days, husband and wife
Hmm.
would work together. But both of them worked in Panama.
Right.
Um, so she worked, that is my grandmother
Hmm.
and grandfather. I don't know my grandfather. I don't know my
Hmm.
grandmother. Only by pictures. I
Okay,
remember vaguely. I vaguely remember my grandmother.
okay,
With pictures dressed as a Martinican
okay,
because she was associated with Martinique also. I think she was born in Martinique
okay, mhm,
before she went to Panama.
okay.
Mhm.
Where was your father born? Was he born in Panama?
Born in Panama, yes. I believe so,
Okay.
yes. Mhm.
And what prompted him to come to Trinidad?
Well, they had a lot of migration in those days,
Mm,
people moving about.
mm-hmm.
Panama, Panama was a place where a lot of West Indians went to get work.
Okay.
And I suppose it's like today, even like today, where, people was moving about looking for settlement, looking to settle down.
Right. Now this is your dad's side. Do you remember that? Do you know their names? Your grandparents' names on your dad's side?
No, no, I don't know them. I don't know their
That's,
names.
that's okay.
Mm.
But your mother's side, Victoria is your mother's name. Her parents, did you know them?
Yeah, I vaguely remember my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What is his story? Mm-hmm.
her mother died when she was young, so I would not know her.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But he was kind of Indian.
Mm-hmm.
He lived in Siparia.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I remember going there as a little child and
Right.
seeing the train running way below.
Mm-hmm.
Where and I, I am told that place still exists.
Okay.
Uh, mhm. Since her mother had died so early,
Yeah.
she sort of lost track of her name,
Okay. That's okay.
but
Yeah.
but she grew up with a family
Mm-hmm.
called Senan, and she carried the
Okay.
name Senan, Victoria
Okay.
Senan. She registered in the church as a Senon, Sennon.
Right.
The family of Senon still exists. We went to
Okay.
look for them sometime, but I thought it was her family, Senon. But I learned
Right.
afterwards that she sort of acquired that name, Senon, because she grew up with the family Senon. Famous thing was transport, tram car, new phase of traveling,
Mm-hmm.
trolley bus, a new phase of traveling also. Schools, there's always school all over the place. There were always, yes. And same educational system.
Right.
Most of it was run by the denominational boards, Baptist and Catholic and Anglican.
Mm.
Uh, and there was a great rivalry among the schools in sports.
So, Grandpa, after Belmont Boys RC School, did you go to was there a secondary school that you went to, or did you start to work after primary school?
Well, the education those days, you try to get into a secondary school,
Mm-hmm.
and you had a college exhibition. The college exhibition, I sat it about twice,
Mm-hmm.
and in those days you failed because I failed.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you had just about 16 scholarships,
Right.
and all the others failed.
Mm-hmm.
16 scholarships. So therefore, if you don't make that 16 as the whole island, you fail.
Mm-hmm.
I never got through. I
60.
started there about
60.
twice, I think, because
Right.
my father was a stickler for education.
Right.
Uh,
Did you say
yeah.
660?
1-6.
16? Okay.
1-6. And even if you wanted to pay you had to come high up in the examination. I didn't make the grade to go to the college.
Mm.
And there was a time that you had to pay.
Right.
And I often wonder, my father sent me eventually to secondary school.
Mm-hmm.
Pamphilian was the name of the school. Osman, which I ended up in Osman. But I often wonder after this day why he didn't send me to the college. Because you could have paid to go to the college,
Right.
as long as you qualify enough to go to the college, and which
Mm-hmm.
is just the same $16 as Osman. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing with Osman that if you hadn't the $16, well, you paid some other time, and they never harass you. But in
Mm-hmm.
college, you had to pay, and that's the only reason I could think of. That
Mm-hmm.
in college now you had to send me a result QRC.
Mm-hmm.
You pay $16 to government. QRC, you pay $16 to the college. But it's the same
Right.
$16 as Osman.
Mm-hmm.
And why he didn't send me to the college, I don't know. I never
Mm-hmm.
asked him. I died before I could ask him.
Mm-hmm.
He
Osmond
was
was, where was Osmond?
working.
Was Osmond also in Port of Spain?
Yeah, Pamphylian
Okay.
too was in Port of Spain. But Osman was near to the Royal Cinema on Frederick
Okay.
Street, which is
Okay.
now in the corner of Charlotte Street and Belmont Circular Road.
So back then, Grandpa, did you have any idea what dream job you wanted to do when you were a child and a teenager? Did you have any idea, or did you just go with the flow?
No, well, it was popular then to secure yourself in government,
Okay.
and I did that.
Right.
So therefore I looked forward for a government job. You had to be qualified and certificate at least from Cambridge. This is what we went to secondary school for.
You, how many years of secondary school? Was it 5 or 7 years?
Plenty years when I spent in school. I I wasn't so bright. After getting through the
Mm-hmm.
Cambridge certificate, which
Mm-hmm.
was recognized as
Yeah.
the big thing
Mm-hmm.
in education.
Yes.
I received Cambridge second grade.
Right.
So there was first grade. There were two grades.
Mm-hmm.
Cambridge certificate, ordinary,
Right.
and upper.
Okay.
For the upper, you had to do another 2 years after the ordinary.
Did you do it?
I didn't know. I didn't do it. I left.
Okay.
I left and went to work.
Right. So you said you got your dream was to get through with a government job, and you did. How old
Yeah.
were you when you got your first job, and what was that job?
I was teaching a little while,
Mm-hmm.
ordinary teaching, and I applied in the government service.
Mm-hmm.
But the sad thing was that my father died
Oh God, sorry.
that
Yeah.
that very year. That very
Okay.
year that I got into the government service. My father died when I was just about 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He died in 1949,
Right. Yeah.
and I got 49, and I started to work in government in 1949. I taught a little while
What did
privately,
you
and
teach?
hmm?
What did you teach, and where?
I teach the subjects that I liked in school, and which was mathematics, and
Mm-hmm.
I was very weak in English. In those days, you had to pass English in order to get the certificate, the Cambridge certificate,
Okay.
and I had to do over the exam. Once you fail the exam, I was very good in geography. I like geography because it's a human subject.
It
It's
is. It
a
is.
real subject.
For the world too. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I like geography. I was very good in French and Spanish and the other subjects. Very, very
Yeah.
good in geography. But once you fail English, you had to sit over the exam. And
Right.
I failed that about twice. English twice. Eventually got through. As time went on, improvement of the education system has made it easier. That is
Mm-hmm.
that if you fail the English, you could always just sit over English. But in my day, once you fail English, you had to take the whole exam.
Every subject again. Oh my.
Yeah. Now we have free education. When I say free education, you only do is this to pass the exam. Hundreds of places.
Yeah.
Once you pass the exam.
So you said your first job was teaching, and you taught the
Oh
subjects that
yes,
you like.
teaching. My teaching was private, in a private school,
Right.
at home, and in private school. At
Okay, so
my
you
home,
just did like private tutoring kind of thing.
yes, yes.
What was it like being a teenager growing up in your day?
Growing up as a teenager, I didn't like it at all. My training as home training was because of the home training of my parents. My father
Expand.
was a sort of strict man as
Oh.
far as
Mm-hmm.
um, discipline, and
Mm-hmm.
you had to be home at early his time,
Yeah.
and he never wanted you to stay out. And in order for you to be a man, you had
Yeah.
to you had to be able to play your sports.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to be in sports, you had to be in the savannah. You had to
Okay.
be with the boys. And
Mm-hmm.
he never wanted that.
Oh
If
God.
he had,
Yeah.
if he had to, if you had to go to to the savannah
Mm-hmm.
to play sports or to
Mm-hmm.
participate in sports. He had to be with you. I remember as a boy, we had goats. We mined goats in
Right.
Belmont,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and in order to play or to be on a little side in the savannah or with the boys, you
Mm-hmm.
you had to keep in the way that when you went to cut grass, you
Mm-hmm.
had to you had to pretend that you were cutting grass, and that can work out. You had
Mm-hmm.
to be regularly at your little kicking your ball and to be on a side of to be able. So I grew up not not playing sports. I had to cheat in order to play sports. Cheat, that is, I would say, pretend they will lie and say that you went and cut grass. And it will tell because in the
With
night you
that?
hear the goats bawling, they're hungry for food. And
Oh.
when he, when he, uh, when he discern or find out
Mm-hmm.
that you didn't cut grass, you
Mm-hmm.
get a curtail.
Mm-hmm.
And I pledged never to raise my children that way. When I went to school, I worked in the treasury in the first days.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they will have a sports club. They will have
Mm-hmm.
the cricket club,
Yeah.
and I couldn't be part of that. I just pretended that I could have played.
Mm-hmm.
I pretended that I played sport. Up to,
Right.
the children even laugh at me. The other day, somebody asked what sports I used to play, and Joffrey and Junior,
Mm-hmm.
they laughed. They turned to each other and just laughed.
Mm-hmm.
I just pretended that I could have was a footballer and nothing. I used to be
Mm-hmm.
on the side, and even now I remember when they asked me what position you want to play, all I could say is back.
Oh, Grandpa. Oh, God.
So
So at no point did you ever like
I don't know how to
play
work forward. I didn't know
um
anything else in those days.
be yeah.
Yes,
Oh
yeah.
God.
So growing up as a boy, I
Mm-hmm.
never participated. I couldn't because because I was not allowed to flourish as a sportsman.
Right.
Um, so I don't know how good I am. I couldn't, as I say, my father, poor fella, he had to be with us. We
Yeah.
couldn't mingle. We couldn't mingle with other children
Yeah.
freely. And to be a sportsman, you have to be able to mingle and to
Yeah.
play sports. You have to be among other children. And
Yeah.
he didn't want that at all. He didn't want that at all.
But even among your siblings, did you all get a chance to play any games like that? Just the
Well,
nine of
yeah,
you?
it was nine of us. We could have played in the yard. Play in the yard, yes. You buy
Yeah.
all kind of things for us. You buy table tennis board. You buy
Okay.
you buy all kind of things for us. We
Mm-hmm.
play among ourselves. Oh yes,
Right.
we play table
Okay.
tennis and thing. But on our terms and our standard. But to be a
Mm-hmm.
sportsman, you had to be, among the village. You had to play among the village. You had to play among the school. You have to play among
Right.
everybody, not only home. When Daddy died,
Mm-hmm.
I was the only one working. I told you my father was an industrious man.
Yeah.
He had bought a piece of land in Sawan,
Right.
and we used to reap a lot of things from that piece of land. And we worked hard as little boys rather than going savannah. So that when other children playing in the savannah, we had to be working on this piece of land. I'm not saying it was bad
Mhm.
because the land is there up to today.
Okay.
We have to be working on this now because a lot of people squatting on the land. Mother had rented the house in order for her to survive because she was a young woman at
Right.
14 and good looking, your
Mhm.
granny. I had to supplement my wages, no, not supplement my wages, but to assist in sending these children, in sending, in allowing my brothers and sisters an education.
Yeah.
Monica, I used to be very embarrassing. It was very embarrassing with Monica because when I would talk about talk about my siblings and so on
Mhm.
and so on, she would say, "Oh, he sent me to school, you know." I used to be so embarrassed.
No, she's
You
happy
know,
and she's proud of you.
she'll both she'll boost me up and say I send all of them to school and which
Well,
I can't
Grandpa.
even remember. Which I can't even remember. My first salary was $40 in 1949. $40 plus $22.62.
This was each
$62
per what? Per month?
per month, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The $62 and $22, $40 and $22 and a few cents for
Mm-hmm.
TWA. The war had just ended.
Okay.
So we used to get TWA, temporary war allowance. So my
Okay.
salary per month was in treasury as a second class was
Right.
$62. And with that, I had to mind the family. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember, but by the grace of God, we got through. We had the land there. We had the house rented out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Rent out, I can't remember how much we got for the house, but it was rented out. In 1949, I started to work
Right.
in the Treasury.
Mm-hmm.
1949. I got married in 1954. How much years is that? 5 years?
5 years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So during that 5 years, yes, so being in Treasury used to be being in Sawan now because we went up there to live.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell you this. With daddy, daddy passed gone. We had to make ends meet,
Mm-hmm.
and so we went and we built a shack up
Mm-hmm.
in Sawan on the land, and we
Mm-hmm.
moved there. So that before marriage, or before even thinking of marriage, I was working at Treasury, as I said. I
Mm-hmm.
started off in Treasury since I was 20 something years old, 21 or something like that,
Yeah.
21 years old. And by the way, I ended up in Treasury in 1988, 60 years after. So I used to travel to work
Mm-hmm.
from
Right.
town to train,
Mm-hmm.
on train.
Right.
And on train, there is a regular people that you meet.
Mm-hmm.
Regular people is a whole family like traveling on train. That was the main mode of transport, the
Right.
train. So you meet a certain people on the train, and there's some carriages that you know that you'll meet these people with,
Mm-hmm.
and you look out for those carriages, and as long as you can get to those carriages, you go on those carriages. Pearl used to be coming from Barataria, I from Sound, and
Right.
the stops were from Barataria, stops on Sound. The next stop was Pearl stop, 6th Avenue. She lived on 6th Avenue,
Right.
and her stop was 6th Avenue. And
Mm-hmm.
you go down the line to Morvan, Laventil, and then Port of Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Besides that, she worked sometimes the other on a place called LHA. LHA was a local health authority, and she had her own people, as any young girl would have friends. They
Mm-hmm.
had either working friends
Mm-hmm.
or trained friends, but her friend, she had a particular friend by the name of Sylvia Phillips,
Okay.
was her good friend, and they worked together.
Mm-hmm.
Sylvia Phillips eventually became Sylvia Thorne because she married a Thorne PHR, and he was also working local health authority. He was um he was an inspector, sanitary inspector.
Right.
That's in that office also. Yeah, yes, Sylvia Sylvia Phillips. You had Sybil Seeley. All them were friends. They, of course, being being government workers, they
Mm-hmm.
had to come across to the treasury where I worked. I worked in the
Right.
treasury. One time I was a cashier. I was a
Mm-hmm.
cashier. So I met a lot of people.
Right.
Even up to today, I have friends who I met as a cashier in the treasury. They had great respect for me, um, being a treasury officer, and
Right.
and I met them, and we will speak, and they'll have great respect for me. And as everything else, Pearl and them will come across the treasury,
Mm-hmm.
and again, after repeat, as everything else, they used to push one another, of course, push one another, and encourage one another with
Yeah.
boyfriends and so on. And
Yeah.
um, and Pearl was attracted to me, and
Mm-hmm.
Sylvia, Sylvia Phillips,
Mm-hmm.
the main one that that will kind of suck that is it. Like when you
Yeah.
suck a dog behind somebody. We will encourage, using a better word, encourage Pearl to be friendly with me because they were good friends, and
Yeah.
and so it's like
Yeah.
naturally she being attracted to me, Pearl,
Mm-hmm.
and so we met. As how we met.
Mm-hmm.
I in work. Yes, so that answers your question. Well, of course,
Good. Yes.
everything there's a lot of behind
Yeah.
you and the parties.
And then what was it like? What was your experience like when Daddy was born, being a father for the first time? What was it like for you?
My first child was Daddy. Just when Daddy was born, he was born whereby in Mount
Yeah.
Lambert area. He was born there. So after we lived, after got married, we lived in the grandfather.
Okay.
He was still alive. He died soon after. He died soon after. Yes, old man Gaines. And
Right.
we went to live at, rented my aunt's place,
Okay.
2nd Street, Mount Lambert. I always remember and still remember walking him in the street
Mm-hmm.
in the mornings after he was born.
Mm-hmm.
And a chap by the name of, and he's still alive. I say many of his friends had died. He's still alive. His name is Arthur
Mm-hmm.
Bartholomew. His mother
Okay.
is a teacher. His father was a teacher, head teacher. The Bartholomews,
Right.
some of the girls are dead. And he used to live near to me. And I will be walking your daddy
Mm-hmm.
on the mornings, especially on mornings, walking him in the streets of Lambert. And remember, and up to today, he remembers coining the name Brown Trophy. Usually we always refer to Daddy as Brown Trophy.
Oh God.
So even when he sees, when we meet to talk and so on, what about Brown Trophy? You know?
Oh.
After Philip, Winston and Pearl had 3 more children: Andrea, Ian, and Geoffrey. He describes all of his children as loving, loving, loving people. He says that his children love each other deeply, and they also hold deep love and respect for himself and Pearl. He added that his children, all of them, have strong and very, very determined minds, perhaps traits no doubt inherited from their parents.
What is so you worked your adult life in finance, right? What sort of financial lessons did you learn over the years that you think are really important for people so that they could not only earn money but save and grow and invest? So what sorts of financial tips would you pass on to people?
I learned so much in the treasury. Discipline. With independence,
Mm-hmm.
it means that we had to undertake most of our controls,
Right.
no longer depend on the colonial
Mm-hmm.
masters. We had to
Yeah.
do our own business. So we
Yeah.
had to train our people, train our workers to be independent on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Not only independent, but independent for a long time, independent in taking over, because as a nation, we realize that everything depends on us
Yeah.
and we ourselves to make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And and all people had that capacity.
So what advice would you personally give me about money?
About money
Mm-hmm.
is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Money, money is the well-being of so many things.
Mm-hmm.
Without money, one cannot prosper.
Mm-hmm.
Without money, you will you're not be able to survive. One might look at a pound or dollar as something that can be earned
Mm-hmm.
easily, but if you don't save or if you don't regard it as something important, you'll just fleece it so that every cent is important.
Mm-hmm. And Grandpa, one of the things that everybody says about you is true is that you have a strong memory and a sharp mind. You are very quick-witted. Yes, I tell you something, you fire back at me with something. Now, how did you always have such a sharp mind, and how do you maintain such a sharp, sound, youthful mind?
Well, I pray to God
Oh, nice.
always. I ask
Yeah,
Him for that. I
yeah.
ask Him to give me that, and because in this world we have so much things to account for, we have so many things to remember, and you
Yeah,
need a sharp mind.
yeah, yeah.
One need a sharp mind, especially when you have children.
Mm-hmm.
You have children. You have people around you. You
Mm-hmm.
need a sharp mind. You need a quick-witted mind. When you have
Yeah.
grandchildren, such grandchildren like you. I hope that they will continue to serve the Lord, who is the professor, who is the holder of this great world.
Mm-hmm.
The world is changing. It changes every day,
Mm-hmm.
and it will continue to change. And we must be ready for changes so that we must equip ourselves to be ready for these changes and ask God to help us to
Mm-hmm.
be able to meet these changes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Amen. Thanks, Grandpa.